Hi everyone, welcome back to Hooked on Onyx, the show where we talk about coffee with coffee people. Today, we have one of my favorite people. This is Bear. Welcome, Bear.
Hi. Hello.
Welcome. So starting us off, I already introduced you a little bit with your name, but what is your full name and what do you do here at Onyx?
Okay, so I have a lot of different names.
Aliases, perhaps?
Yeah. Okay, so historically, my name is Anthony William Bear Soliven, but early on, I had a really bad lisp, and now I have kind of a lisp, and so there was a turning point where I decided to shorten my name to make it to where I didn't have to pronounce the TH, the F, and so I was like, I don't want to be called Tony either. And so, yeah, my nickname in high school was Huggy Bear. So as an adult, I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna make this legit.
It's pretty
it's gonna
rad.
go by Bear, and I think it says it. You know,
It's a good name.
Yeah,
it's a very good name. Here at Onyx, what is your main role?
that's a great question. I get asked that question a lot.
Do you?
And yes, they're like, so what do you do at Onyx? And I don't know if anyone's ever seen How I Met Your Mother. That's like,
yes.
Maybe showing my age, but it's sort of like Barney. Whenever they go, so what do you do at the bank again? And he goes, please.
Being the Barney of Onyx is the coolest title ever.
I mean, that's how it feels. Because primarily, if I were to look at, I don't know, my pay stub, it will say Wholesale.
Sure.
You sell coffee to other coffee shops and companies that don't roast for themselves and want to have our coffee and partner with us. So that's, I'd say, a primary. But it gets a little bit more trickier with all of the different types of things that Onyx does. Like Onyx is this big in reality, and what we do is like this big. And so with this size and this amount of staff and doing this amount of things, a lot of people are doing a lot of different things in so many different departments that it kind of gets spread out a bit.
Sure.
And so sometimes I'll find myself talking with our design team for apparel. Sometimes I'm working on collaborations with artists or on some random road trip and trying to like get really good content with products that we wouldn't otherwise get because we happen to be there. And so you can go on with what is totally possible. And I think what the Onyx owners like is just a willingness to be funny and silly and to attempt to do good content that will maybe make it or not. It doesn't really matter.
You do great content, by the way. Excellent content.
Thanks. Yeah, I mean, I lost my self-respect a long time ago.
So zero shame.
It's like, now it's just make it work.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
How long have you been here at Onyx?
I think I'm coming up on my 7.5 year.
That's awesome. That's a huge majority of like Onyx's time. This year is 10 years? A decade. It's very exciting.
Yeah, I missed out on the first 3 years, and I was actually living in Northwest Arkansas when that was happening. I got to Northwest Arkansas as Onyx was becoming a thing, and I was so envious.
Yeah. How do I get in there?
I worked for another coffee roasting company, and I would always take like dates to Onyx and be like, look how cool they are, and, like pretend like I knew what they were doing and stuff. But I always, in the back of my head, was like, I'd never be cool enough to work for them, like ever. And so I just kind of waddled away. It's like, okay, bye. And you had like the early on guys like Dylan, and Llama, and like just people that like were, I don't know, constants in those beginning years, and got to know them, talk to them, and they were learning, and their desire to learn sort of like engaged you in a way where you're like, it was, you want to know what they know.
Yeah.
But I didn't, and so But then I came eventually, and
Finally,
it's been great. Yeah.
How did you get started at Onyx? Did you immediately go into like the wholesale space, or did you start somewhere else first?
So, do you want the story I tell, or do you want the real story?
Both.
Okay. So when I was working at another roasting company locally here, they had us sign these non-competes. So if I ever left that company, I couldn't work coffee as a barista anywhere else, which is ridiculous.
Yeah, I was gonna say first of all.
Yeah, like in this area or for X amount of years. And so I was living in Bentonville. I was working I had left that company. I started working at Mercy Hospital, and I pretty much had my own cafe there, but there was also no real growth potential there. And I was wanting to do something else. And then I had this job opportunity to be lead barista at Crystal Bridges, which seemed like it would have been like your top dollar position,
Sure.
Namely because you're technically working for Walmart, and it just seemed like
Pretty good scenario.
Yeah, all the benefits and PTO and all this stuff that I was hearing about, and I'm like, you never hear that in the service industry regarding that.
Yeah.
And so I was like, bet I'm gonna do that. And for one weird reason or another, I got hired, but I never got brought on. And I was just in a really bad place, and like in and through that little mini season, I almost like went homeless. I was like, what do I do? Like I quit that job to start this job, and they're not bringing me on, and so
you're just in limbo.
My money's gone. And so I had a couple friends help me get a temporary job at a restaurant called Oven and Tap, where I met two of like the most world-class chefs I had ever met, Molly and Luke. And dude, it just became a family. I loved it. And then out of nowhere, I get this phone call from John and Andrea separately about, hey, we hear you live in Bentonville and you're not in coffee right now. And I'm like, how'd you get my phone number?
Yeah, first of all.
What? Me?
Yeah.
And so as that happened, and this is how John will tell it. He was like, John will say, you didn't want to work for us. I had to beg you, blah, blah, blah. And that's not true. I was more so fearful of that NDA that I had or not NDA, the non-compete that I had signed. And and the thing that got me in was, he said this, A, that's not a thing. But B, if that employer did try to pull that on you, I'd go to court for you. And I said,
wow.
Okay.
Yeah, a little tear. Yeah.
Okay. So I rolled up in my best bolo tie for my interview.
Yep.
And
the rest is history.
Yeah, Andrea and Lama gave me my interview, and I was like, please hire me. And my resume packet had a picture of me. Did you ever use the app called Draw Me Like Your French Ladies?
No.
Oh my gosh.
This is new to me.
Yeah, so there's an app called Draw Me Like Your like your French Ladies.
Yeah, like a Titanic
It's
reference.
a quote from Titanic.
Yeah.
But you essentially got like pictures of people or pictures of things, and then you would draw those as best you can, and then you would make it public. And so my friend had got a picture of me, just my big face with a hat, and then did it, but in a way where it was just like a silhouette with a lot of different colors, and I loved it. So I put that on the front of my resume, and then I put...
That's eye-catching. That's very good.
Or I put Bear all the way down, and then I used it as an acronym. And it...
What was the acronym? Do you remember it?
I don't, but I have it.
We'll have to like hunt this down.
I have it on my phone somewhere. It would take too long to find it, but it was... I didn't think I was going to get the job, so I just...
You went all out. You just kind of threw it all at the wall.
I was like, listen... This is me.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
That's so cool. So you started in as a barista or into leadership?
No. I started out in training at the Springdale, and it was me, the drive-through window, and my kazoo.
That's the dream. That's the dream combination right there.
I mean, depending on what manager was on shift, it was either music to their ears or
The bane of their day.
Just counting the minutes till that shift was over. Because every single car that came up, I would get the...
You have like a jingle.
What do you even want today? And good morning. And they got a kick out of it, but I mean, on the back end, all you hear is this little kazoo going on as you're trying to make coffee. And so, yeah, that's where it started. I was being trained as the Bentonville lab was being built out.
Sure.
So downtown Bentonville is not what it is today.
Yeah.
Or not, was not what it is today.
And HQ didn't even exist.
Oh yeah, it wasn't even a dream yet.
Yep.
That was, yeah. So this was like the first from the ground up thing that they got to build out. Everything else was like a rebrand from Onyx to, from Arcegas into Onyx. And Bentonville was like, okay, from the ground up, we're going to think intentionally about our baristas, how these processes are going to work, what it's going to look like aesthetically. And needless to say, inside of that time, it blew everyone away.
Yeah.
Like it was just,
yeah.
It was it. And it was all over the internet. It won so many awards.
Yeah, absolutely.
It was great. And yeah, so that was what I was being trained for as it was being built out. And so once the doors opened, I think from day one, I started there for a year. But I was doing this thing. I didn't quit my other job. Essentially, it looked like this. From 6 a.m. till 2 p.m., I was a barista at Onyx. And I'd take a nap at my car. And then 4 p.m. till around midnight, I was a server at Oven and Tap.
Wow.
I do that about between 5 to 6 days a week.
Those are long days.
And I mean, it was just, that was like my season of hustle.
Yeah.
Like, get it done, get ahead. You were almost homeless. Don't ever let that happen again.
We're going to like make up for, keep going.
Just get it. And there was no other real pursuit that I had other than to like, okay, I have opportunities in both of these places, and I just want to do the best I can in both arenas. And so on one side, I was learning a whole lot about the culinary world I had never learned before. I had never been a server before. And I was really kind of like just shaking the cobwebs off of like different parts of my brain that I hadn't like
touched in a while.
Maybe I had never touched, because like when you're working as a barista, and that was historically what I had did. I was a barista at Starbucks. I was a barista at this other company in town, and I was also a roaster. But with those things, you have like a bar. I feel like Nick Miller from New Girl, where he's like, I like having this bar.
You have a divide.
There's
and like
6 feet between us at all times. You never go on the other side. But when you're a server,
serving's a little different.
Everyone is around you. There's just arms crawling at you.
Customers are just grabbing.
I need a ramekin of ketchup. I need one.
Giving me flashbacks here.
Yeah, but it was great because I feel like a lot of what I learned in that realm actually translated so well into how I postured myself in wholesale when I eventually got there.
Yeah.
Because good servers, like good servers, are going to be people that are aware.
Yeah.
They're watching, but they're also not the type of servers that will walk up and as soon as you sit down, be like, "Do you guys know what you want?"
Yeah.
Or as soon as
it's about like kind of curating that experience of what people need and having that foresight of what they might need, and
and having a good pitch of tact in how you interact.
Yeah.
Like if I've had servers where they're there, they're getting my order, but then they're kind of staying long and talking about their cat, and I'm like,
like we finished, we're good.
Yeah,
we got this.
I like you, but like we have business here, you know, and or
kind of third wheeling on our
and then there's the one that you can never find. You're like, wait, no one's taken an order yet. I had nowhere to be, and so finding this perfect balance of like, okay, the person that is always there, is always taking care of you, but is not overly bombarding, has good tact, like, hey, is everything going well? Perfect.
Yeah.
Okay. Let me know if you need anything, and you move on, dude. Like that in the wholesale context is. I didn't realize I was gonna like pull from that experience into where I'd eventually be, but that took me a long way. Anyway,
that's incredible.
So being a barista, being a server, all at the same time, I was just nonstop hustle, and the restaurant was brand new. I helped be on the staff as it was opening, And so being like probably the best restaurant in Northwest Arkansas, John Andre were there all the time. So I worked for them, but then also I served them a bunch.
You had FaceTime with them.
Yeah. It was it was really funny because then I'd be like, "Hi, what are you guys?
What are you doing here?"
Yeah, I feel weird. Like you're my boss, but you're not my boss right now. But you are my boss right now.
But you're also my customer.
But you're
right
also
now.
my customer.
Yep.
How do I treat you special? Free olives for them.
Get the appetizers flowing.
Can you get some olives over here? Yeah. Yeah, so it was cool, and I can't speak for them, but I think what they saw was a good amount of hustle, and it led into really good conversations with them on the Onyx side. I had a lot of conversations in the industry about, hey, how do you get more involved? How does it happen? And I've never really been the person to raise my hand on stuff. I more so, again, sort of walk with my head down in order to do the thing that's in front of me.
Sure.
And working in the realm of more like empathy and context of where I'm at, trying to facilitate this, I don't really have that good knack for dreaming and being like, hey, I'm going to do something me related in a bigger picture.
Sure.
And so having that desire, but not really having practice in how to do
Like
that.
executing on that sort of stuff? Yeah.
Yeah, like I always feel like I'm in imposition. Always. I feel like this potentially
I relate to
in
this
my
very
brain.
much. I get you. I get you on this. I'm with you.
Yeah, some people will walk into a room and they know what they want, they ask for it, and I'm like, you have the gall, And I'm like,
You can just do that?
you can just do that? That's cool. I think growing older kind of puts you in this state of like, you're maturing into understanding that there's a good, healthy way of that happening.
Sure.
But in your younger years, you're kind of like
imposition's a really good word. That's like I understand that.
Yeah, I want to not climb a ladder, but I want to like explore what there is out there.
Yeah.
But I also don't want to be like, hey, look at me. And I'm also not accusing other people of being that way. It's just how I internally feel.
Yeah, absolutely, for sure.
And so asking a lot of people like, hey, how would I go about talking to them about this? And all of the people that I spoke to were like, dude, just talk to them. And I didn't view them as like they're untouchable or like they were always there. They were always in my face. We were friends. But broaching that conversation was like kind of just, I've never done this before. And so once I did, and I kind of let them know, like, here are my desires, here are my things that I don't know about, but I want to know about. I remember they invited me out to dinner and they asked me straight up, they're like, so what do you want to do? And I should have been prepared for that question, and I wasn't.
It's a hard question.
Yeah.
That's like the most difficult question in existence.
Yeah, especially if you don't know what you don't know.
Yeah.
And so because I'm like,
I think I might want to do this, but I've never tried or don't know what that thing is yet.
Yeah. So this was what they said. They were like, we don't want to make someone managers that don't have that gifting or don't have that desire or don't have that so we're not just going to put you somewhere. And they then explained like you could develop your palate and become a green buyer and travel the world and source coffee. Is that something? And I'm like, what?
Do the what?
Excuse me? With this?
Travel the what?
Go there with this? And then another was like, do you like putting on events? Do you like getting people together? And like, because being an event coordinator is a thing. We have a lot of people wanting us to work their parties or to just have more events for people to go to. Do you want to? And I couldn't give... I didn't have a lot of confidence in anything that was being described. I couldn't see myself doing that. And so I shared with them, like, here's who I am as a person, like human being, Bear. I would say my giftings are more in the realm of counsel and clear communication in order to resolve like issues and things. Like I want clarity in friendships, I want to be sure that I know exactly what I should be doing and doing that, but I also want to make sure that I'm helping people. So service industry is perfect, but I just want to know if there's more growth beyond the bar in that capacity.
Like I want to continue using these skills, but it's like, what's the next level of them?
I'm like, copy and paste that into the coffee industry.
There you go. Good to go.
I have no idea what that is.
Yeah.
And so they're like, cool. All right, well, let's all just chew on this. And back to work I went. And then I think it was a couple months later, they're telling me we had this super talented person that was already doing wholesale for like, I think it was like the first like 3 or 4 months of the program being handed off from the Allens and into someone's hand. And she was just incredibly like, she was talented, she was hungry, she just had everything that you would want in a person who had a lot of drive and force. But she stepped down, she wanted to pursue culinary, and there was a gap to fill. And they were like, we think we have a spot for you. It's not a clear picture yet, but we want to see what can be there. And when someone like Andre says there's not a clear picture yet, there's like a Monet drawn out in their mind already, but it's just not there yet. And so it's like, how do I be a good tool in their hand in order to get this
to fit into this and then expand it from what it is currently?
How do I portray what they're trying to accomplish?
Yeah.
So just being willing, being open, and I'll tell you those were the first 2 years of stepping into that role were 2 of the hardest years of my life. I had never imagined what it would be like to be in a shouting match with one of my best friends, Andrea Allen, just me and her across a pallet of green coffee being like, we need to set expectations correctly. You didn't tell me to do this. If it's my job, you trained me. You can't get, like, yelling at each other. And I'm like, I'm fired. Like, I'm firing myself. Like, this can't happen. Yeah. But over the years, like, just trying to ensure that, like, we are, all of us on the team and the department, to see it grow, there was just this willingness and commitment to make sure that things are being done excellent on behalf of the people that we're serving.
Yeah.
And if that wasn't being articulated well to them in our actions, if that wasn't being portrayed well in how our intentions on paper looked, and then how we would go about doing that, there was just so many systems and functions that needed to be built in. And all of those in an umbrella statement would just be growing pains.
Yeah.
Like, there were so many growing pains on the front end.
It's a natural and sometimes painful occurrence.
Yeah. But I think it just grew us all together. It was a season of knitting to get the ball rolling. And I think a lot of the efforts on their end, not just in the department of like helping me get that career path going in order to make wholesale something that was
today too.
Something that was like going to be profitable and good, but also their own endeavors in competing and the exposure and all the, like, anytime competition season was over and they were like second place, third place, like all these things, all of a sudden floods of emails would hit me, and I'm like, oh yeah, we love working with you. And I'm like, okay. So like, as much as I in those early days would seek out, new potential partnerships.
Sure.
There was
those inbound.
Yeah,
just accelerating.
It was a wave. There were just waves, and then once that happened, we were like, okay, how do we serve them well? We knew how to serve them well. We're learning that. Now there's, how do we serve them well? And now how do we serve them well?
Yeah.
And the eventuality was like, hey, we need to build this out into a department.
Yeah.
So I think 3 years in, we're like, let's have more than one person do this.
Yeah, it's a good first step.
Yeah, because it was me on the world. Like, it was me state, coast to coast, and then international, like everything. Yeah. And it was like,
you were against the world.
Yeah.
Yeah, quite genuinely.
And then door creaks open. In walks in this tall silhouette of a figure with long hair. Lance Hedrick. The Lance Hedrick era had stepped in, and it was a joy. Me and him were friends before Wholesale was a thing. And I think we found that out over just a couple visits that he had. And I think behind the scenes he was interviewing for stuff.
Sure.
But he would always stay with me, and we love musicals. Like, if you're annoyed by how much Lance Hedrick sings, you would be triple annoyed by our office space together.
I can imagine it was a party all day long.
It was just nothing but singing and silliness and people telling us to shut up. Like, I wish you guys...
The kazoo times 100.
I want you guys to know Gabe. And I want you guys to know Gabe in the context and what I'm referring to.
You and Lance and then Gabe also.
Yeah, Gabe, just see him standing on the other side of a room, ominously like this.
Just a death stare. So good. I think there are probably still buried deep on the Onyx Instagram. There are probably still, I remember like very early on before I ever really like knew anyone at Onyx or like had any inkling, I remember seeing, it's like this core memory, seeing a video of like that old space that you used to be in. And it's like, it was you. And then I believe I remember seeing Gabe in it. And there's some video floating around of it that's on the internet still.
Oh, we have.
I'm sure you have many more buried.
We have plenty. Yes. It was a building and an office that was straight out of like a 70s horror movie.
Yeah, it was all like wood paneling, right?
Wood paneling, everything was falling off. It just was, it was ugly, and it was the best time of our lives. And it was the grassroots stage. It was like, I don't know how we're getting this done, but we are.
But we're making it happen.
And all hands on deck. Everyone needs to like pitch in, do this, do that. And like, it was a monster. And so sometimes, like, just recently, it's been a long time since anyone on our wholesale staff would have to like go and do anything in the production area. The production area, due to the leadership of Gabe and our production team, is just a well-oiled machine. But holidays come and sales turn up, retail, wholesale, and so it's more so we just need more hands on deck. And so I recently went down there and like jumped in, and people that work down there have seen me come in and out and take little meetings with people and stuff like that. But then working alongside them, and they're like, oh, you know how to do this? And I'm like,
you're like, oh, back in the day.
Listen, hang on. You know how we have 7 of these machines? We only had 1, and it was me and Dum Dum Tony on the other building that you see sometimes. Just us sweating it out.
That's incredible.
It was great.
So much history. So nowadays, what are some of your favorite parts of your role? If you had to like pick a couple.
Yeah. This sounds very altruistic and fluffy, but for years as I have been in this role, there were certain things that John and Andre would do in their leadership role that I had never expected them to hand off. A lot of those things pertain directly to my role as a wholesale agent, and it was always something that I was attracted to. It was always something that I really was interested in. And so for years, I just sat back in those meetings and I gleaned and I gleaned and I learned. And yeah, so when we're approaching people that want to build something out, this is the altruistic part. I associate that with their dreams. Mm-hmm. Like people will have an idea. They pinch their pennies together, or they get giant loans that have a lot of stakes at hand, and they're saying, we need guidance, we need help, we don't know how to do this as well as we could. Help us do this. Included in our partnerships are different levels of consultation. And so the consulting end was always something that I would hand off to John and Andre, but I would always sit in those meetings, or I would always want to be on standby as they're on the Zoom call with them and they're walking through blueprints, or they're walking through different types of renderings or things that they scrapped out on a piece of paper and said, "You see, this is what I want. Does that work?" And like, it's seeing how John Nandre would react to those things, kind of just hearing how they would pepper the same sorts of like things that would help best bar flow in and how they're explaining what a bar format looks like in order to have the barista's comfortability there. All of that just hit me, and it changed the way I looked at cafes around the country. So as I was traveling for the job in just seeking out more wholesale partnerships, and then also while I'm in town for different coffee events, I'm now with my eyes on how people are working. And I'm like, oh, weird. They're why that grinder's over there, that is over there. Why do you have that fridge? Like I'm just like breaking everything down and not judging them, but more so like trying
it's a question of why. Like, why is that the way you're doing that? And is there perhaps a better way to do it?
And I would directly link that with the baristas' faces. Because I'm seeing certain types of baristas topple over each other, or have to like do weird bending movements that are unnecessary, or like, look at that. And that just was data collection. It just, it got stored up. And then at a certain point, to answer your question, they asked me like, hey, I think you know enough to be able to do this. So to a certain degree, you can take this part on.
Yeah.
And so it started with equipment sales, and then it led into direct consultation. And so it's been really, really cool, because now I'm engaging in conversations with people that are trying to open up cafes or coffee concepts, or just things that they want advice about, and I'm like, this is exactly the thing that I feel the most comfortable doing. Like being able to listen to someone, hear their fears, interact with their hopes, their desires, and then be able to, with good feedback, with good ability to help equip them to go that route, to partner with us with a great product, to do those sorts of things. It makes for this very like co-beneficial type of relationship that you would hope you would have in any type of relationship. And so that is my absolute favorite part. It's the most time consuming. It's really easy if you find people that are like seasoned baristas, they're opening up a thing, they're like, hey, we already know who you are, we just want to use you guys. Boom, and I on-ramp them to our wholesale website, and they're just like boom, boom, and then all of a sudden they're putting in orders because they know what to do. That's really great, and that like helps our sales in a great way, and it helps on-ramp really great partners and flagship types of people that we want to be out there. But for people that just have very little idea as to what is at stake for them, they know on a monetary sense, and their experience in the coffee industry has only ever been from a consumer's point of view.
Very different. Bringing
them on the other side of it, and then walking with them hand in hand all the way down the chain to the farmers, and then walking them back, like, here's the importance and the significance of our relationships. And that would directly affect what costs across the board will look like. So that's one part of it. Now let's walk hand in hand in regards to equipment, talking them through the benefit of overhead, what's the term I'm looking for? I just had it. Dang it, broke my flow of thought. Overhead. Essentially, when you purchase something that is going to retain value. And so if you do that, opposed to going the less expensive route, the cheapest route,
and like faster route, what's the?
Yeah, you're going to fall into the problems of you're probably not going to be able to do the type of extraction that best displays the coffee that we have to offer. But B, you're also going to run into 6 months down the line or even a year with issues with this machine.
Yeah.
You look at the things that we're saying, hey, this would probably be here's the spectrum of like what machines are out there in every brewing method. I'm not going to point you towards the most high-end bells and whistles thing that you probably don't need, but at the very lowest point of here's the thing that is going to be inside your budget, or you need to build your budget around this.
Yeah.
In regards to grinding correctly, in regards to filtering correctly, and then in regards to extracting correctly. Here are the types of things you need, and if you make that investment now,
it'll pay off tenfold.
It will. And then, like, God forbid something happens to your business like a month from now or a year from now. You've purchased something that retains value, equity. There we go. If you invest in the overhead into something that will retain your equity in it, then when you want to sell it, it is a brand that you know well, that is known well. It's a machine that's probably going to work really well for the next person to use it. So you're not really putting your money out there and getting a machine. You're putting your money into a machine that's going to stay there, and it's going to then compound
back into everything.
Yeah, it's going to compound into into paying itself off, and then the profits to come.
Yeah.
Having to talk through people and see it that way is such an eye-opening situation for most people, because they don't view it that way.
Yeah.
They see their money.
It's just numbers
flying.
At first.
Yeah, they see their money flying away, and they're like, okay, we hope.
Like, great, we have this machine. Cool. There was a cheaper one.
Yeah, and then you have that part of it, and then you have an incredible team of trainers that we have on our staff that will come alongside them. We have them fill out a sheet to say, hey, we have this grinder, this espresso machine, this batch brewer, this XYZ. We let them know ahead of time, and then Alika and team will be like, okay, based on this, here's how we're going to engage them. And they meet them where they're at. So if they're seasoned baristas, there's like this list of like, what do you want to know? How do you want to be trained?
Yeah. What else do you need to fill the gaps?
Comfortable out?
Yep.
And then people that are like, we've never done coffee. Our staff's never done coffee. What do we do? So from the ground up, seed to cup, here's what coffee is. Here's what here's who Onyx is, and we're going to hit you in the realm of like, we want you to visually see what we're saying. Alika knows how to write backwards. So as he's looking at you in your eyes, talking to you,
building out this graph.
He's talking backwards and writing out, like him and Dylan bought these really cool tables that live there that you can write on with dry marker. So as you're looking at them, they're writing what they're saying down backwards so you can read it. So whether you're a visual learner
or an auditory,
and then eventually you get to go be hands-on. And that has such a huge impact on how people learn. And then, I mean, that turns into them being able to like take that into their context and put into practice immediately what they just learned. And then they become seasoned coffee professionals just because their owners have invested in them. And that was part of our encouragement to do so. It's like, hey, we know that you don't know, and that's great. We almost prefer it that way.
And that's okay. We'll get you there. Yeah, we got you. That's incredible.
Yeah, our team can teach anyone coffee. What we need is your willingness and your and helping to coach the ownership on their end to invest in the baristas. Because I think that's oftentimes, like you were saying, it's about money. It's about numbers. That's like, here's what we need.
That's a portion. Yeah.
Q1, we need to make this amount. We need to get out of the black by this. We need to XYZ, and that's great. But part of what they're missing is
that human element that always has to be in play in service.
Yeah, you're not going to do that without happy baristas.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's gonna play itself out. Like, especially if you've done your homework on the community that you're going to have, and you have a really cool concept, that's going to happen. If you make it, they will come. Like that's real. but how you're treating the people that you're working with and the people that are working for you and the culture that you're instilling, if we can have any sort of if we can have any sort of impact in how you posture yourself in that department, that is going to be a lifelong type of influence that we can share with you, that you're going to share with your people, and then that's going to leak into the community.
Yeah.
And that will make for sales. But it's not going to be primary.
But that's not the priority. It's everything else that leads to that. That's a great end result, but it's everything else that matters.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And
that's really great. Yeah.
And I think that's how we...
It ties so nicely back into what you were talking about at the very beginning with like simply working as a server and understanding how those relationships need to form even between you and your customers. And it's the exact same, just expanded out at what you're doing now.
Yeah.
Which is awesome.
Dude, for sure.
It's so cool. Got like chills.
It's one of those things people ask me like, hey, have you always wanted to do this? Have you always wanted to be in sales? And I'm like, hey, I don't view it. I don't wake up thinking I'm going to make sales. Like, it doesn't feel like
I'm
sales.
in sales. Yeah.
It feels like people have needs and I get to meet them and I'm incentivized to do so.
Yeah. If you want to call it sales, great.
Sure.
But
yeah. But going into the whole server thing, it's like, I don't want to be that person that's like bombarding you with emails or trying to like upsell you so I can meet some sort of we don't have quotas. We don't have it. We're like wanting to ensure that our product is out there, that we have good representation in a lot of great cities. And we want to also ensure that we're not like bombarding a community or a city or oversaturate our product, and thereby in an ironic way, you're going to cannibalize your own accounts and deteriorate the value.
You want to do what's good and right by as many as possible.
Yeah, but it's also like if you have something that is everywhere, the rarity aspect of your value deteriorates.
For sure.
And so if you've had Onyx everywhere, like
it's not special
in a city,
or I don't know. I don't know if special is the right term, but it's that feeling of like, this is something we do with a lot of excellence, and we want to be able to maintain that excellence throughout this little bit and then this little bit as well.
Yeah, I think it's how you define success. Because if we define success as just making a lot of money in a lot of cities by selling our coffee, then if that's how you want to define it, then that's fine. I don't think that's our posture, though. I think us coming hip to hip, side to side with partners and pushing business through them and watching them grow over the years and seeing our sales increase incrementally with them is so much more of a profound thing, because everyone in that city knows where to get Onyx.
Yeah.
It's here or 10 miles down the road over there or in that direction over there.
Yeah.
Depending on the size of the city, or if it's a small city, it's like, dude, you're our people. And we want to see you grow, and we want to come alongside that. Whereas that's not going to make the most profit right then and there. You're not going to make the most money. We can get in that store, this store, this store, that store, that store privately, and then everyone is like, wait, are you? It's that the Spider-Man.
We're all here.
You're serving Onyx, and you're saying, and then there's this big surprise, and I'm like, I did what's best for me, and I did what's best for our company in the realm of sales, and it's like, that's why it doesn't feel like sales, because we're considering so much more than just the profitability of going out and taking over a city or a region. It's more so, who do we want to work with that's willing to adopt the same type of standards that we have, that wants to have the same type of representation, and that's open to sharing values. And if we can actually help and impact their lives and their company, then I think that's the measure of success that we want to have, better than just. And this might be the end of my job for saying all this. I might be fired now.
Very poetic.
Yeah.
No, I agree. I think it's a really special thing to be able to dissect it like that and break down the difference between, I think you said it best by like, what do you define as success? And our definition of success might look a little bit different than other people's, and that's okay. And theirs is okay too. But as long as we're focused and we understand what our measure of success is, that's what counts.
Don't hear me say we don't want to work with you. We
Not
want
at
to
all.
work with you.
We should, we'll have like Bear's
You.
email drop down below.
Wait, the funniest
Yeah.
thing that I think that I did as a like measure to like drive business out there was, do you remember when Johnny Depp and what's her face were going through that court case?
Oh, yes.
Okay, so there's a picture of them talking in court, and up top it said the last thing Johnny Depp ever said to, I forget her name.
Amber.
Yeah, Amber Heard. And then it's this little, this little like, this dialogue between them.
Yeah.
It was like, listen, Amber, I need you to hear me out. I'm probably never going to say anything to you ever again. And she's like, why would you do this? And he's like, listen, you need to just be quiet and hear what I have to say. And so it just goes back and forth all the way down. At the very bottom, and it said, if you have a cafe in the southeast region and would like to partner with Onyx Coffee Lab, please hit up Bear at onyxcoffeelab.com.
Super
I
funny.
think that was the best feedback I got ever on a social media post in regards to like,
awesome.
Yeah.
That's a good one. That's a very good one. So that's what you have to beat now. Yep, pretty much.
I mean, it's weird being at the top.
Yep.
With that.
Well, thank you for your time today.
Yeah,
this
thank
has been
you.
super fun. I'm so glad we got to do this.
Yeah.
To everyone at home and watching, thank you for also being here with us. We'll see you next time. Bye, everyone.